Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're taking a look at a warlock build that came together so perfectly, I just had to make a video on it. If you like the hive, you like poisoning enemies, you like causing them to explode, you like dealing tons of damage, then this build is for you. With Destiny's final update, we got the ultimate and best version of the poison warlock, and that's what I'm showing off today. And to make this whole process easier for you, do note that there are timestamps down in the description, that way you can skip to the video and get whatever information you want, and that there is a dim link, that way you can click that link and get this build for yourself with ease. But now also, we have a word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Aniba, a marketplace where you can purchase all things gaming, but at reduced prices. We're talking games, gift cards, even in-game items, and every Destiny DLC is like 10 bucks or less here. There are literally thousands of titles across all platforms, and you can use my promo code or affiliate link down in the description and the comment to get yourself an extra discount at checkout too. And on that note, you can buy with confidence as every seller is reviewed, Aniba covers chargebacks, and Aniba has a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot too. But that's not all. We've got another big plus coming from Snaxy. Snaxy is a leading play-to-earn platform powered by Aniba, where you can play RPGs, puzzle games, strategy games, all to earn coins, and then you can turn those coins into gift cards for all your favorite places. If you want to check out Aniba or Snaxy, use the QR codes on screen, use the links in the description, and specifically for Snaxy, use code TOYDDESTINY to get a $10 sign-up bonus. There's a lot to love from the sponsors today, and again, thank you Aniba for helping out the channel. So taking a look at the first thing that this build will use, we have the new exotic fusion rifle, Cull's Shadow. This fusion rifle is actually a hybrid glaive, which is very important for this build. But starting with the main exotic perk, it reads, final blows or rapid hits with this weapon's frontal blades heal you and provide soulfire charges, which cause rounds fired by this weapon to inflict potent corruption. These frontal blades deal increased damage to targets afflicted by corruption. Now, taking a look at part 1 of this perk, when we use the melee to get a kill, we will get 1 charge of soulfire crystals. We can have up to 6, and we can see all the possible charges down here in the bottom left. Then these charges are consumed whenever we shoot at enemies with the fusion rifle mode. Each shot will consume 1 charge, and a buffed shot will poison any enemies that it hits. And versus poisoned enemies, we can see the increased melee damage, where our normal melee does 252, it goes up to 362 when versus a corrupted one. That is a 46% increase there, but we're gonna buff that up quite a bit more. Now, back inside the exotic, we have its secondary exotic perk, Soulforge, which reads, targets afflicted by corruption from soulfire charges coalesce into soulfire crystals when defeated. Crystals detonate in a damaging radius when destroyed. This perk is just about the crystals. When enemies die that were poisoned by our fusion rifle, they will leave a crystal at their point of death. And these crystals are just bombs. They are very similar to tangles, they just do a lot more damage. You can melee them and shoot them to cause them to explode, or you can use one of the customizable catalysts to have them do something else. So looking at that, our chosen one is Soulfire Rancor, which reads, soulfire crystals expel potent corruption when destroyed and automatically detonate when a target is within close proximity. This essentially turns our crystals into auto-detonating mines. The main focus of this build is just to tear through enemies without a second thought, and this feeds into that playstyle more than the other catalysts, while keeping things very explosive. Now moving on from our exotic weapon, we're going to take a look at our exotic armor. And here, there's truly only one option. That is the necrotic grips. These arms read, damaging a target with a melee inflicts potent corruption that deals increasing damage over time. Defeating targets afflicted by corruption spreads the condition. And then we get a moderate benefit to airborne effectiveness of weapons of sorrow. Who cares? The main thing that I need to showcase to you is how the fusion rifle melee will now cause poison. And then any enemy that dies to any source of poison will explode and spread that poison around. This exotic is surprisingly simple in how it works, but it is very effective. With that said though, we can dig a little deeper and actually use an exotic class item that uses Spirit of Necrotic plus Spirit of Syntheseps. Spirit of Necrotic allows our melees to apply poison, and it still causes all poison to spread when enemies die. The one thing this version misses is that the poison no longer escalates in damage over time. But to compensate, we use Spirit of Syntheseps so that our glaive melee now does a ton more damage. Against a poison combatant, our melee now hits for 783 damage. That's a 217% increase over base. So you can use either or in this build. If you don't have a class item, just use Necrotic Grips. But if you do have the God Roll Solipsism, then this build can definitely hit higher heights. Now moving on to our subclass, our super of choice is going to be Song of Flame, just because I like its all-purpose use. You could really swap this out for anything though. Our class ability is Phoenix Dive for the shortest cooldown and the heal on demand that it allows us. Our melee is Arcane Needle because it's simply the best one, although we don't get to use it too often since you can't use melee abilities while you have the glaive melee active. Then our grenade is a Vortex Grenade for some Fragments energy. But now moving on to our aspects, our first one is Feed the Void. This aspect will give us Devour on any ability kill. In game, we can see this trigger by throwing a grenade, getting a kill with that, and then once we have Devour active, kills will fully heal us and regenerate some grenade energy while also refreshing our timer. You likely know how good this aspect already is. Next up though, we have a Weaver's Call. This aspect causes our class ability to spawn 3 Threadlings whenever you use it, but it also causes any weapon damage to generate Threadlings over time. And looking at this, poison is counted as weapon damage, which means we are always just spitting out Threadlings. And as a cool note, which is actually unwritten within the aspect, Threadling damage will refund a bit of our class ability, so we can just spam it like crazy at base. But now to finish our subclass, we have our Fragments. First up, we have Fast of Purpose. This will give us some super dependent survivability. In the case of this build using Song of Flame, that's restoration whenever we pick up an orb, or if you're using something like Needle Storm, that gives you damage resist with Woven Mail. Then we have Fast of Protection, which is a no-brainer pick because it just gives us free DR for being near enemies. Then we have Fast of Hope, which will fast track our class ability whenever we have any buff, and Devour does count, so we just always have a shorter class ability cooldown. Then we have Fast of Courage, which will cause our light abilities to do increased damage to dark debuffed enemies. Most easily, this is done by using a Transcendence Grenade or throwing an Arcane Needle. And then lastly, we have Fast of Dominance, which will cause our Void Grenades to weaken targets, which includes both our Vortex Grenade and our Transcendence Grenade. But now, before we go any further, I want to actually take us straight into our artifact choice, as it's pretty important here. The chosen artifact is the Encrypted Data Disk. This has a lot to do with melee damage and spreading around debuffs. It gets pretty crazy. So looking at how this is built, moving left to right, first we have Kinetic Synthesis. This says that sustained kinetic weapon damage and rapid final blows have a chance to generate a unique ammo brick. Collecting this brick will grant ammo to equipped kinetic damage weapons and grant special and heavy ammo progress. It's just free ammo for dealing damage with kinetic weapons, which is poison. Then we have Fierce Proxemics, where it says finish your final blows, grant grenade melee energy. It's not super impactful, but we just need something to fill this slot. Our next big mod is Singularity Blade, that says while you have a void elemental buff, melee and sword hits weaken targets, while melee and sword final blows create a weakening burst. Devour is a void buff, and we are meleeing everything, meaning we're going to weaken them for more damage and spread that weaken around. Then we have Armor Smith so that we get damage resist after breaking its shield, and we get a little bit of increased melee damage too. Then Counter Energy to have some ability recharge on champion stun. Not really important here, just something to fill the slot. Then in our final category, we have Kinetic Rupture, just so we do a bit more kinetic damage. It's not super great to be honest though. And lastly, Void Infestation, so that whenever we kill a weakened enemy, that Void Weaken will spread to other enemies. Now, we can actually show off just some of the bonuses from our artifact. While we have Devour active, melee hits will weaken enemies. Then when they die, the weaken spreads with a damaging projectile. And once the dust is settled, the enemies are dead, the poison is done ticking. We have these Kinetic Synthesis bricks that give us so much free ammo. Now, before we move on and talk armor, I want to quickly talk on other weapons that you can use. In this build, we don't have a whole lot of boss damage, so using something like a Rocket Pulse and the A499 will help you in those settings. But honestly, you don't really need to do much. You can kind of rely on Cold Shadow, as when you do have Syntheseps procced, it doesn't like cook, but it does pretty good damage for all normal activities you might be doing. But otherwise, cater your weapons to boss damage and you'll clear everything with ease. Or use an Eager Edge Sword. That's what I do most of the time. But now looking at our armor stats, we have a pretty balanced build here, and I am so sorry that my stats are bad. We'll talk about why in a second. But as for what we do want to focus on, Having a high weapon stat will allow us to deal more poison damage and give us a better economy, so we try that here. But you could also try to bump up your melee stat to go all in on the melee side of things. Again, my armor stats weren't good enough to allow me to do this, but your luck might be different. Then the rest of our focus was even across grenade, class, and super, so that we can spam those abilities on a shorter cooldown. But now as for why my stats were lackluster there, it's because we want to use the Crota's End Raid armor set. The 2-piece bonus causes our melee kills to explode like a cursed thrall. We can see this in action here. It's just more AoE damage going around. But now onto our armor mods. On the helmet, we run a special ammo finder, a special ammo scout, and a kinetic siphon to make orbs with Cull Shadow. On our arms, we run 2 firepower so that we spawn orbs on a shorter cooldown, and then a bolstering detonation so that grenade damage reduces our class ability cooldown. Our chest is just for resist. On our legs, we have a recuperation to get a small chunk of health on orb pickup, an absolution to get a small chunk of all abilities on orb pickup, and then a kinetic scavenger for more ammo to our fusion rifle. And then our class item gets a special finisher to make ammo on demand, a powerful attraction to suck up orbs with our class ability, and then a reaper so that we can make orbs after using our class ability. But now we have the final topic, and that is the gameplay loop. We usually start by throwing a grenade or using a class ability to try and get an ability kill. That way we can start Devour. This is our main source of survivability, which allows us to really get into the thick of it. And by thick of it, I mean just slaying out with our glaive melee. While doing that, we will be poisoning enemies, making them explode, spreading the poison. Our melees will weaken them and spread the weaken. At this time as well, if you're using the class item, your glaive melee should be buffed immensely thanks to Syntheseps. And with each kill, we'll be getting charges for our fusion rifle, meaning that anytime enemies are just a little too far away or they're grouped up, we can shoot them to poison them all and prepare them to spawn a crystal upon death, which is more explosions and more poison. While slicing enemies up, use your grenade and class ability off of cooldown, which will be very short. Thanks to our aspects 2, there should be a sea of threadlings afield. Ultimately, everything is just going to turn green as you jump towards enemies and slice them up. Remember that you do have Transcendence and a super to use. I trust you to use them when you see fit. There's not really a gimmick activation for either ability. But I actually think that's it. This is one of the most fun builds to come out of the Monument of Triumph update, and it just fits the fantasy so well. If you were ever a fan of the Poison Warlock build, this is the penultimate version, and I implore you to try it. With that, remember that there is a dim link down in the description that way you can grab this build easily, and also support the channel, support me, a like, a comment, a subscription, hyping the video if you're on mobile, coming over to my Twitch, saying hi there, joining my Discord and saying hi to me there. All that helps out a ton. Don't support me and support the channel, but you can't think of a comment though. Comment down below, poison. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.